Greetings and welcome to Retention Chronicles, the podcast with learnings from expert e-commerce brands and partners. I'm your host, Mariah Parsons. If you're here, you're either on a quest for e-commerce enlightenment or you accidentally clicked the wrong link. Either way, I am thrilled you stumbled into our corner of the internet, and I hope you'll stick around. We've got pearls of wisdom for everyone, whether you're running a multi-million-dollar business or simply just starting out on your entrepreneurial journey. Before we unleash the brilliance of today's guest, let's give a shout out to our podcast sponsor, Malomo. Malomo is so much more than just another Shopify app. They're post-purchase wizards, making beautiful and branded order tracking smoother than a jazz solo, so our amazing founders, like our guests, can keep their customers happy and up to date while they track their orders. So hit that subscribe button, like it'll increase your LTV overnight, and go listen to our other episodes at gomalomo.com. That's GOMALOMO.com. Get ready for insights, chuckles, and perhaps a profound realization or two with this newest episode of Retention Chronicles. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Retention Chronicles. Excited for this early morning recording here we have today. Zoe, thank you so much for joining us. For those of you who know Zoe Khan, I'm sure you're excited for this episode. And for those of you who don't know Zoe Khan, I'm sure after this episode, you'll be very, 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 very likely to look into everything that she's doing and everything that she's crushing, because I am definitely an avid follower. So Zoe, thank you for being on today. I know it's 6:30 your time, so really getting up and grinding. And I very much appreciate you making the time to do so. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, of course. I'm super excited, and I don't mind the early mornings. You do what you got to do, but I love getting on different podcasts and everything. So I'm happy to be here.
Love it. Love it. Yes, you are a podcaster yourself. So we're going to get into that. Would love for you to just give a quick intro so any of our listeners who aren't familiar with you can kind of have a little bit of context before we dive in. Obviously, plug your podcast as well. And yeah, then we'll get into it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so hard for me to just say who I am now because I'm like, I'm a million things.
Yeah.
But currently, my most up-to-date bio, I'm the VP of Retention at Audien Hearing, which is an over-the-counter hearing aid company, which is new industry. Definitely very, very, it has its challenges, it has its pros, it has its cons, and it's very rewarding. We're changing people's lives, helping a lot of people. So it's amazing. So that's my full-time gig. And I also own an agency on the side called Inevitable Agency, which I always call my happy accident. I created it as a place to solve a problem. I'm very, very customer centric. Customer experience is really, really important to any position that I've ever held, really. And yeah, so I accidentally founded this agency because I was getting a lot of outreach to ask about customer experience. And I just realized that I personally didn't have anyone to send these requests to because I don't know if it's a perfectionist in me or maybe I'm a little brat, but I'm like, no one, no one does it like I do it kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
So
You got to have
that's
that belief in yourself, right? As a founder, right?
right. I do feel like it's a founder mentality, but also yeah, I hadn't found a lot of customer experience solutions and after being in e-commerce for years. So I was like, well, let me just find some people that I trust and put a team together. And so yeah, now it's about a year and a half old, and we've got a team of 7 people now. And I just recently started expanding my marketing team on the agency, which is fun.
Awesome.
So yeah, they're doing that. And then I also host a podcast called Let's Laugh About It. It's a not so serious business podcast where we talk about all things business, but it's very lighthearted. And yeah, we were just talking about that. Mariah and I have similar just like vibes. And there's a lot of not so lighthearted podcasts out there, business podcasts. So it's something that's more casual to listen to, but still you could gather insight from. So that's a little bit about me.
I love it. Yeah, that was a great summary. What are you talking about? I know
I'm
there's a
like,
lot to
do
go
you,
into,
do you
which
want to
makes it
know
fun to
my,
have you.
yeah, I'm always like, okay, should I go into my favorite color, my family life? Like, I
That'll
don't
be
know.
for later. Yeah, that's like 5 minutes from now. Okay.
Okay.
No, I feel like I going off of like the not so serious podcast balance of I recognize the value of all of them in that like super tactical strategy podcast where it's like, okay, you need to like break out a notepad and like start writing all of this down. That's great. And with this podcast, I like to try and strike a balance, which is, you learn about the person, you learn about some tactical approaches, and which we'll get into. And I would love your advice, with all the background and CX that you have. But before that, I wanted to ask because I feel like I every quarter and every month it flies by, it seems like, but then also when I'm in it, I'm like, okay, we have so much time. Like we're launching something end of month. We have a month, whatever, right? Like so having your agency for a year and a half, do you feel like that time has flown by? Because I feel like when I look back at a year and a half of what we were doing, or even when you and I met originally at Shop Talk 2 years ago, or wait, yeah, 2 years ago, um, and that seems like it was just yesterday.
Oh my
I
God.
guess
Yeah.
not two years, but like probably like a year and some change because it was in March,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, how has it been like growing the company, adding on, you said 7 other people. I don't know if that includes yourself or whatnot, but 6 to 7 other people. What has that been like?
Yeah, it's been crazy. It's one of those just things with time where it feels like it was yesterday, but then also feels like it's been forever. When I first started the agency, it started with just consulting work. And I still haven't done really any outreach. Well, we could actually talk about that actually because I'm
I
trying to
would love
figure it
to.
out. But everything's been inbound, and I started getting consulting clients because I won a award. It was a CX Operator of the Year award,
Mm,
and I didn't even really before that. I hadn't. I was kind of just like head down doing my job and like doing the best I can at my job and learning as much as I can. And I didn't even really know that there was this like whole e-commerce community. And yeah, when I won that award and then realized like people are on like Twitter X or whatever, like talking about e-commerce, and there's like I don't know, different Slack communities, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And if even thinking about time from like before, like pre Zoe knowing about community, I'm like, that feels like yesterday, but then also I feel like I've been in this like e-commerce community for a long time. And yeah, there's been so many, like time has flown by because I'm like, oh, I need to go. Like I went to an event after I won that award and I was like, wow, I learned so much at this event. And like there's just been so much has happened since the agency kind of like came into fruition. And yeah, it feels like it was yesterday, but and can't even believe that like we have enough work to give to 7 people. But it was just like a client needs something and they like want more of our time, and we're like, oh well, we don't have enough people for that, but we can like if you guys want it, we can hire for that and like make sure they're trained by us. And it just grew and grew. And yeah, now I used to be way more involved in like the day to day, where I was waking up at I would wake up at 3 a.m. to post the podcast, and then I would do agency work from like 4 to 7 a.m. and then start my 9 to 5. And it was like that those days felt super long. But
well, they are super long. Yeah.
yeah, as they are.
Give yourself that
Um,
credit. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So that made things go by really fast, but I learned so much through it. And then these past like 6 months, I've learned to accept more help and then just like put more trust in like now that people have been working at the agency for a while. Um, I mean, a while, same, yeah, this whole time thing is like weird.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so now I've got like such a solid team that I can remove myself a little bit and have like more space to think and everything. But yeah, time is crazy. It feels like forever, but just a minute at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, kudos to you and your team for having everyone come in inbound um so far, and more than happy to chat about, kind of extending that branch and like where you all are looking to go beyond that. But I think the big thing that I also have become privy to of being in this e-commerce community is just how much it is a community, and it's great because people are so willing to obviously share their tips and tricks and be very vocal with like what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong, and like share newsletters and all this stuff, that it makes it very accessible, which I think is because a lot of the people in this space are founders themselves, right? Like they know how hard it can be to
Yeah.
know what to do and what not to do and all that stuff. So once you started kind of waking up to a community aspect and like the community that is really the undercurrent of e-commerce, how did you start to tap into that? Because I feel like that's something where I hear from like our brand side of the podcast, where social is one of those things that's it is everyone knows it's important, right? Like everyone feels it as a consumer, as a founder, as a ecom operator, but actually tapping into it, there's just so many different ways that you can do it and so many different platforms. So how did you kind of whittle down like, okay, I want to focus on Twitter and I would say like LinkedIn, because that's where a lot of the e-commerce operators are. But what's if you can articulate like any of your thought process around trying to dive into that community.
Yeah, it's I love this topic. And it could be related to brand side too, because when you think about it, it actually all comes down to community and
Mm-hmm.
being genuine. Because and I don't know if this is very helpful, but I have never had an intention of growth. I've just always had an intention of like learning and then also sharing knowledge. And I think keeping like a curious mind and like uh being always in a place where you're in a growth mindset of like learning, and you don't ever like think you know everything. I know I made the joke of like no one does it as good as I do, but
Now
I
you'll walk back on that a little.
I can
Both are
say
true. Both are true, Zoe.
both are true. I can say that, but at the same time, I know there's so much out there to learn. There's always something to learn. And so when I'm in on Twitter and on LinkedIn and at events, like I'm there to learn. And then like once I learn something, I want to share it
Mm-hmm.
because it's help in if you have that mindset of just like learning and connecting and just like truly like just making friends and building community, and I found so much value, and people appreciate just like being connected to others who are similar or share different interests. And it comes down to that community. And if you go into it with like, oh, I'm gonna like connect with as many people as I can so I can get all these clients and all these whatever and like whatever, I've that comes off kind of icky, and people can feel it. And when we go to events with the agency girls now, I always give them the spiel of like, we're not here to get clients. We're here
Mm-hmm.
to learn, make connections. And like, if clients come out of that eventually, that's cool. But like, we're at these events to learn and like make friends and just like connect with others. And if you can teach someone something, that's great too. Like, give, and then like things will come around. What goes around comes around. And I think it's just that it's like more about community and less about like that goal, like that money mindset, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I think yes, I 100% make think it makes sense, and I think a lot of people who are in this community would also understand and relate to that. Of, and like that's how I see this podcast. I started it 3 years ago, right? Of just on a whim of okay, I want to get to talk to amazing people. I want to immerse myself in the e-commerce community. How can I do that? And also, push myself to reach out to people and have this like benefit of okay, you're going to be so gracious to give me your time. What can I give you as an exchange in that? And a free platform to go and talk about your brand and your learnings. And I can connect you with the other people who have been on this podcast, right?
Yeah.
And like all of the benefits of, yes, okay, I am taking my time the same way you are taking your time, but you're also doing me the favor of teaching me about what you're caring about, both on the brand and the partnership side, right?
Yeah.
And so it was a great immersive experience where I could just kind of explode in terms of looking at all the different ways people are thinking about this without having a background in e-commerce. And that's what's made it so fun to have this podcast, right? It's a great outreach to someone of like, okay, yes, please give me your time and I will give you this free promotion. And then I can also go to those events and talk with people and like make those connections that you're talking about. And then also say like, okay, you're a cool person. I want to talk with you more. Let's hop
Yeah.
on this podcast just like you and I are doing right now. So
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things that it's a very slippery slope or an easy thing to get get caught up in of like, okay, to and I understand it, right? And I see it from my side as well of like justifying expenses of like, okay, trying to get clients. But I think to your point of like people can read through that and it'll probably be a way shorter interaction if you're trying to do that. So Malomo, we're the same way where it's like, okay, event marketing, that is sheerly like our metrics that we're measuring aren't attached to revenue. They're attached to like branding and just like going and chatting with people, whether it's like personal branding, like just getting our name, like my name out there and Malomo's name out there of just, like going and talking about what we do, even if that's where the conversation stops. And then we continue talking about personal stuff. Like that's where I am at and that's where our company's at and that's why I'm sure you feel this as well of with your agency being able to like share that message and know that you're sending people out there who are representing your team that also believe that message. It's so powerful because like
Yeah.
even as in my seat, right, like you're getting so many hitches, you're not incentivized to want to stay because the conversation has turned into something that, okay, now I feel this weird obligation to maintain this conversation, but like I don't want to be rude, but I also don't need this service right now. So it's like, it's great if okay, tell me what you do. And then if I need that service, we can continue talking about that. But if I
Yeah.
don't, then I just want to know about you and like your story and your learnings and like all of that rather than, okay, now I feel like I have to exit this conversation and like give this weird middle ground of like, yeah, maybe like,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. I feel that.
yeah, I
The,
feel like a lot,
yeah.
and I think there are like certain conferences where that happens more at, or like certain events where that happens more at. So like we were talking about Chicago before and like happy hours, right? Of like it's just very chill. There's probably not really any metrics that any company is
Yeah.
trying to hit because it's like, your after work hours. It's not this big conference that you have all this big expense about around. It's just like showing up. And so that's where I find being able to make foster those connections and then like bring it into the community is a lot of fun.
Yeah, and what I find too, and this probably isn't great advice for someone who's like trying to grow an agency from 0 to 1 million in a couple months or anything, but like I'm a very like long-term person, or I don't know, I actually don't even think about it too much, besides like being there to help and give back. But what I have found is that I'll meet someone like 2 years ago and just stay in contact with them and just be a good friend. And one day they'll reach out and like ask for my help, or they'll recommend someone to me and like so it makes it very very organic and natural and like it feels good because it's not like I don't know, you're just helping people and it's like it's a long game of just being there. And I also feel very blessed for I don't rely on the pot or on the agency to pay my bills. And so because
Mm-hmm.
I have always had like a full-time gig too, and now one of my clients is my full-time gig. So I feel very blessed in that way where I don't feel pressure to like make sure the agency has enough clients to like pay myself or like live the lifestyle that I want to live kind of thing. But I just like as long as the agency makes enough money to pay the employees, then I'm happy. And so I don't have that pressure of like
Mm-hmm.
sell, sell, sell.
Yes, yes. I think that's a great, I guess, way to articulate or great setup of like, okay, founding the business in this specific way so that you don't have that pressure. And then, like, you're not just saying, okay, we're not trying to sell, but like deep down, you really have that
Yeah,
pressure.
exactly.
Cause like that
Yeah.
also, I understand, like a small team startup world, e-commerce, very fast, it's very quick pace, very fast moving. So I get that, like, okay, sometimes you are going to have to be in that seat of like crunching the numbers, but it's nice if you have that setup to not have to worry and you have that security of a 9 to 5 while you're still working with your clients. Um,
Yep.
so I love that. Okay, so let's dive into some more, I guess, strategy because I think a lot of the times when we have our agency partners on here, we're focusing on a lot of the times like paid media and email and SMS, which is great because there's so much that you can do with that, and it's a ever evolving um, realm of e-commerce. But an agency that's focused on the customer experience, I feel like it is more unique in that I just don't see it that often. Maybe it's simply because, Malomo, we're sitting my 9 to 5 sitting in that realm of email and SMS. So I would love to kind of if you can give like a summary or a boilerplate or like best practices of the people that are coming to you, like what problems are you seeing often? What are they trying to solve for? And how are you kind of thinking about solving those problems for them?
Yeah, and it's really, really interesting. I love this topic so much. The it's so and it's so related to retention that it's crazy that
Yeah.
it's wild that people don't look more into the customer experience. A lot of times our clients and even Audien, my full-time job, uh, it's a company that grew so fast, but didn't have the foundation of setting up their customer service or customer experience for success. And so they're overwhelmed and
Mm,
they're taking a step back and being like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to answer every customer. And like where we cut corners and like use some cheap solutions that are giving bad experiences to our customers, or where we've put someone in the position that doesn't know the brand as well as the founders do, even though like the founders are the ones who trained them. But then, like a lot of times a customer service or customer experience hire is one of the first hires. But with that, it's a really special hire, but you're also being hired by founders and the
mm,
founders are very busy. And so a lot of times we see there's this disconnect of like, your founders and your customer service, customer experience, and then like there there's a disconnect also of like being how much do you pay that person? And if you're getting an entry level person, then they don't have all of the experience of like setting up this foundation and stuff. And one of the places that we've gotten really good at is just operationally setting up your team for success so that they can give good experiences, but then also give great feedback. Because my previous position to Audien was Chomps, the meat sticks, and that's where I worked there when we met. And I accidentally fell into email and SMS because the person who was doing it had gone on to another position, and I knew nothing about it. And I was just like, I'll figure it out, like I'll sit here temporarily, like so since someone
how
has
many
to do
days
it.
until you're like, oh my God?
Yeah.
Figuring it out is
And
really hard.
yeah, it is a whole nother world. But what I realized is that like customer experience, and it's actually related to like every part of the business, but like if you don't have that good feedback loop with your retention marketers and your email, SMS, loyalty, subscription, literally everything, there's so many things that can break and that your customer service team doesn't understand, where like you have this email flow that's going out and like the email marketers who set it up don't a lot of times don't have time to do the due diligence to like check to make sure everything's working in 90 days when that flow goes out
Hmm.
finally.
Yeah.
um and then your customer service team is getting complaints of like you guys said this in your email, and this coupon code isn't working, and like the experience, the landing page is giving me a 404 error, like all of these things that are like so simple, or even just like mass marketing to uh your customers, that you get this like feedback from your customer service, and like they before I knew about email marketing, I was like, okay, I have this list of 50 people that I need to reach out to, but Gorgeous at the time can only send out 25 emails at a time. So I'm going to break them up in lists of
Mm.
25. And now I'm like, wow, I could have just uploaded that list into Klaviyo this for the years that I
Yeah.
didn't know about email marketing. Um, so yeah, it goes hand in it. You take all of this feedback that you're hearing from your customers and you implement it into your retention strategies. And there's so many things that you can do with that. And looking at the data, a lot of times the other thing we do is look at different like win back,
Mm.
because we're a lot of times playing cleanup, where it's like, oh no, what we've done, we've grown too fast, or even we marketed too quickly, we sent out too many emails, like, and aren't able to respond to them all. And then we lose customers because of that, because we're not there to service them, or we gave them a poor experience unintentionally. So we set up these like win back systems of like reaching out to these customers who were upset, and emailing them and trying to win them back and apologize. And then also not only that, but like learn from the experience. And I always say this of we're actually like getting down to the root of the issues instead of putting band-aids on them. And so we learned so much from the mistakes, and then we cross communicate not only with retention but operations, and we fix all these issues, and so that things can go smoothly and that you can grow quicker without worrying about um the damage you could do by providing poor experiences.
Okay, I love that. So, a couple of different things to tap into there. My first question is I love what you said about the, I guess, mass like not mass exodus, but like mass um yeah, mass email send or mass email blast, and then having people who are lost because you don't have the support that is necessary to answer their questions and make sure that they're taken care of. And so then producing a win back campaign and making sure that you're okay, solving for that problem, yes, of like those ex customers did not have a good experience. So let's apologize for it. And I would love to, first part, go into kind of what, like specifically what copy or what decisions, if there's like a promotion or anything along those lines that you think, you know, or that you're incorporating in a win back campaign. Because I think that could be tactically something where if someone's so overwhelmed with, okay, yeah, we sent this email and like, oh my God, we got way more support tickets than we were ready to handle. Something that they could roll out of like, okay, step one, win back campaign. Don't send out any more emails until we try and win back the customers that were already customers and try and retain their business or gain it again. And then like mass amplify that to, okay, we learned this from this first email blast. Don't, you know, have XYZ set up and then can grow and like create that flywheel effect. So I would love to dive into kind of how you're thinking through copy and creative and making sure that you're not furthering the frustration and pissing off customers even more
Yep.
when they're already upset.
Yep. There is, and I actually have grown in this area because being very like being sitting in the seat of just like the customer support side, it is very much that like, hey, marketing, can you just stop sending out emails for a second? Because like we can't catch up. But
Uh-huh.
now I've moved into the mindset of like now having the retention mindset of like we can't just stop sending out emails because we have growth goals and everything. And so like how can we continue to send out emails but
Mm.
also not damage our reputation with our previous customers? So that's really important to figure out. And a lot of times it's a numbers game, or maybe it's like a temporary help type of situation. But very, very simply, first step is communicating with your support team and making sure they're staffed for mass communication. So it's missed. It's so simple, but it's missed in many companies.
Yeah.
So and the bigger the company is and the bigger your email list, the more it matters. Because if you send out an email to a million people and your support team doesn't even know what that email says or what the offer is or anything about it, then they're not going to be able to service those customers. And two, they're not going to be staffed properly. So I would say like make sure that the communication is there and just like talk about the schedule and like try your best to not send out last minute things or like something on a Saturday when you know your agents aren't working. It, we've learned that it also helps with conversion because you have people on the site who might be like coming in from the email that you sent and they've got a question about the product and so they're writing into the chat bot. But if no one's there or they don't know how to answer those questions, it'll hurt your conversion. And same thing with email. It's like people might email in and have questions about your products or your service. And if no one's there to help them, that customer might not convert. So it's really, really big. Like communication is very, very important. And also, it might be annoying at first because I used to be that person, that like support person that would be like, oh my gosh, you need to add all of this like fine print because the customer is gonna like this happened before and like with the loyalty, whatever, like actually, you know what? I hate this email. Don't even send it. Like,
Actually, cancel the whole thing.
yeah, like you just forget about revenue. Like you just
Yeah.
so it's really great to establish good relationships with your customer experience and support people because you'll be able to find that balance of like making sure that you're not causing them stress because it's coming from a place of like, oh my gosh, I had to work till 3 a.m. to like answer all those customers because you didn't put the best, like your copy in your email, like confused everyone or like you didn't set up you didn't turn on or you didn't even like enter the SKU into Shopify. Like all of these checks and balances that like cause your support team a headache, that's where that please stop sending emails thing
Yeah.
is coming up from. So if you just develop a good system and just like really lean on your support team and be like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this campaign. Do you think that there's anything I should look into or like things we've learned from the past that went wrong? That way, like everyone's happy, your conversions are good, your customers are happy, and that's like most important.
Yeah. So this is an interesting discussion that we found ourselves in that inherently like my 9 to 5 is marketing, your 9 to 5 is CS. So it's like
Mhm.
talking about the partnership is quite fun. In the partnership between teams. And so I feel like, and I'm curious what you would say to this of a lot of teams just understand the burden that CS usually gets, right? And it's like very what's the right word for it? It's very not sensitive, but very tumultuous maybe of like because you're the front line for customers. So everyone is like, CS, please be on it. Like, please don't make this customer frustrated, right? Or like solve this problem that this other team started, maybe, or right. Like, and I think every, I hope at least every person in e-commerce or retail or whatever, whoever is dealing with the customer, you are almost praying like, okay, please, please, make it a good experience. And with that, I know as a marketer of like, okay, CS is already so bogged down and so busy with everything that they have to do. So as a CS person, I like that you put the, I guess, lens of, okay, I used to be maybe this way, but now I think about the retention piece of like, okay, we can't just like stop sending emails, right? That's not realistic. So like, how do we work together? And one way is just making sure that your communications aren't last minute and that the copy is, of saying what it should be and not confusing customers. But as we're generalizing, of course, but for our representative teams, I know as marketing, like I would be hesitant, and I've also learned this lesson of like when to know to pull in your CS team of like, okay, review this email. It's been reviewed by everyone else. So you should just have to skim it, right? Rather than like, okay, help me draft this email. So like that's one little example of I just know like, okay, last touch, bare minimum, ask for our CS team. Do you feel like that's why there's maybe some hesitancy of like other marketers maybe not pulling in their CS team because everyone is kind of just like known in the realm of like more often than not, CS is probably overwhelmed. So don't bother them unless it's necessary. Like, do you think that there's any of that coming into play here?
Yeah, it's such an interesting question because um I think that it comes down to again that communication and understanding because yeah, and the CS team, it depends on like the structure of the CX
Mm-hmm.
team too, because hopefully in depending on the size of the business, et cetera, but like because sometimes the person who's like kind of in charge of your CS team is also the person who is still in the tickets and like also helping a lot. So hopefully there you get to a point where the person who's kind of in charge is not completely removed from the tickets and the customer answering, because I think there's beauty in always being in the weeds of like very at least minimally in the weeds. But hopefully there's a person who has that space to think through the entire experience, and that's where things can shift from just like the support piece to the entire experience, and that's where you can get the insight from your support team. But I actually have found a lot of frustration from both sides where if like you're showing the support team to skim it and then they bring up like, hey, did you check this? Or like, did you talk to Dev about like this or that? There's so many
Mm.
different things that we could use
Yeah.
as an example.
It's a whole
And then
oyster. Yeah.
yeah, but then you're like, oh no, well, I like really just wanted you to skim this to like make like whatever, and it's supposed to go out tomorrow, but like you just brought up like X, Y, and Z that I should check, and you know what, like let's just hope it goes okay. And so that's where it becomes really frustrating for support people. So that's where it's like it's so hard to do right because e-commerce, and I'm sure that you see this like usually you have like small teams and there's like everyone, no matter like how put together people seem to have it, no, everyone's doing last minute shit. Everyone's
Yeah.
procrastinating. Like no one's 3 months ahead on their marketing. Like
On top of it all the time with every single thing. Yeah.
nobody has their shit together. Yeah. So
Yeah.
like if you could ask your support team, like even just like it doesn't even have to be like an hour long meeting of but like if you just slack someone and say like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this campaign. Like, is there something, am I missing anything? Or like, here's the copy. Do you think that the customers are going to perceive this well? Like that is so appreciated by the customer experience team because it's showing that like you're trying to prevent and like help with the best experience and you have the experience in mind. And yeah, you have to find that balance where you're not trying to put like work on the support team, but you value their input. And that's
Mm,
like what really matters.
yeah. I like that phrasing. I'm not trying to put work, but yeah, valuing insight. Um, okay, I love that. Well, I know I feel like we could just keep chatting forever.
Mhm.
But I know it'll continue after this podcast. Um, but it has been great to have you here, even just to like touch on even all the giant that CS really is and be able to talk about the customer experience because it is so intertwined with retention. And obviously that's where majority of my time is focused with this podcast of, okay, how can with the brands and the partners that we're talking to, how can we make sure that we are really focusing on retention when, acquisition costs are so much higher? So it's a perfect, I guess, medley or perfect combination for us to sit here and think about how CS is playing into that. Cause usually it's marketers that we're getting the majority of the perspectives fun
Yeah,
from. So it's a lot of fun to have someone like you in this seat today. So thank you for taking the time. Hopefully it
yeah.
was a good start to your morning.
I love it. I'm energized.
Good, good. I'm glad. I'm very glad to hear that. Thank you again, Zoe. I know we'll be in touch, and I'm very excited to get this episode live for our audience.
Thank you for having me.